The Morning Brew podcast with Jaffe and Razor, sponsored by Berkshire Bank Home Lending. Where you borrow matters. All right, so we're about 29 minutes into a really good Morning Brew with Jaffe and Razor on was it Monday night? Monday night, yeah, Monday night. And then all of a sudden, the phone starts lighting up and everything starts going crazy and notifications coming in. And we find out that the Boston Bruins decided to fire Bruce Cassidy. And you're like, oh man, this has been a good show. We're talking injuries and we're talking how they're going to deal with it. And we actually brought up the fact, Razor, that Bruce Cassidy was still the head coach of the Bruins. And we thought maybe, given it had taken a couple of weeks since then, that maybe, just maybe, that despite the, I guess it was, I mean, not a guess, in 2020 clairvoyant vision, I mean, it was not a vote of confidence from Cam Neely when he had his speak with the media a few weeks previously. So Don Sweeney decides to fire Bruce Cassidy, and Razor and I, we stopped. Said, all right, the injuries are important. The opportunities for the Bruins coming up, what are they going to do? It's important to talk about, but we're going to do a more in-depth show on Bruce Cassidy and Don Sweeney and the decision to make a coaching change. And so we decided to record another one today. So that one has not been released, and I don't know if it's going to be released, folks. Razor, I know that you are incredibly concerned about the fact that mulch has not come in yet. Your 6 yards of mulch to your driveway delivery. So we're going to get right into this thing, brother, because if it comes while we're talking, I know you're going to get the wheelbarrow itch to get out there and get it done. You're going to be working like at night. You're going to go like a floodlight to work in the yard tonight. I can tell, like 9 o'clock, Razor's going to be.
I'm not exaggerating. I'm having a worse day than Bruce Cassidy is this morning because my mulch is not here right now. I really am. I'm like sitting at the window waiting. I've booked my entire day for this, and there's rain coming, and I'm not happy. You can ask Erin. She had to leave the house. She just couldn't handle me talking about it anymore.
Well, you prepare yourself.
This is a big day. Yes.
It is a big day, the mulch day. You prepare for the physical, but more than that, the mental grind of it and how you're going to place it and make sure it all ends up being worth it and all that stuff.
Where I'm finishing, all of those things. Yeah. So I'm a mess right now. So let's
go. Yes. All right. So I wish I had a kind of a pun to use about mulch and the Bruins and what they've done. Let's just get right to it. By the way, this Morning Brew, Jaffe and Razor, brought to you by Fazenda, the wonderful people over at Fazenda, fazendacoffee.com/morning brew. Go ahead and take a look at that. And they still got a couple of mugs left in stock. We were both surprised. Now that you've had about 18 hours to digest it, Razor, are you surprised what the Bruins did in firing Bruce Cassidy?
Still surprised that I guess it took a few weeks. That was the big one. Again, we had even talked about it last night, that it was still, no votes of, nothing had really been hammered out. And so yes, that it's certainly not shocked by the fact that it did it. And to your point of hindsight and the way
I'm not shocked it happened.
Yeah.
I'm not shocked. Right. You said, I'm not shocked it ended up happening given what was said by them before, but to do it and to come out, I don't know. I don't know why it actually surprised me.
It's just a random Monday night, and right, like it's just different, I guess, than usual firings that we see, that you can see it coming and or it happens whatever it is. So yeah, surprised that you're just surprised when it happens, when a coach who coached a team to 107 points in the regular season and had the run that Bruce did, it still is surprising, because you can easily just go with the status quo. And Don Sweeney, Cam Neely left some breadcrumbs at the end of the season that they weren't happy with the way things were done, and they fulfilled those feelings, as though it seems, tonight or last night.
Do you think that Cam Neely had a lot of input in this, or do you think it was more Don Sweeney? He seemed to take an awful lot of it. He said he had time to digest it. I don't know if you got a chance to listen from the presser early in the morning on Tuesday. But he said, yep, finally had some time to digest it after the combine, blah, blah, blah. And I made the decision. I think he had his mind made up a couple of weeks ago, personally. Just a me thing. But maybe he wanted to take some time. And we know that his contract status, I mean, it's either done or it must be getting done, I guess, right? Given that he made this decision. He obviously had to have the approval of upper management and ownership. But do you think it was more him than Cam?
Yeah, I think he took a lot of input the last couple of weeks, and that seems to me to be clear of why this did take a little bit longer. That to your point, I think he had a feeling of the way things were going, but I think he wanted to double check those feelings. I have to imagine he took input from Cam. There's no question. He's the boss,
right?
So he definitely took input from that. I wouldn't say. I never get the sense that Cam's actually making decisions. I think Cam has input, and rightly so, because of what he's done for this organization. But I don't think he mandates, just like I don't think that talk of Patrice mandating or Brad Mart mandating, those guys don't do that either. But there's definitely conversations being had on the way out. And every one of those ones that I've been in, you go to the coach's room, you do that one, then you go to the GM's room the next day and you talk to him about what happened in the room and what he thinks, and you get all of those and you compile that and you put it together, and those help you make decisions on personnel throughout the organization. So that seems to me that's what took that extra little bit of time. There was probably a lot of conversations to make sure that he got this right in his mind.
But he being Don Sweeney, had exit interviews weeks ago now. So this, unless maybe, do you think he had follow-up conversations with some guys? Have you ever gotten a random call from your GM? I don't say former GM, but a GM that you had played for that year, after you've done your postseason meetings and your physicals and everything, and you've gone backpacking through Europe, right? Because that's what all NHL players do. Have you gotten an extra call, another call to say, hey, I wanted to go over something we talked about? Does that ever happen?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that happens again, because think the timeline of the exit meeting is typically a day or two right away, right? You're out of there, and you're losing game 7, so it can be emotional still. It can be a little raw still for everybody involved. And if the coach is up in the air, which obviously he was the last couple of weeks, I have to imagine Don circled back and with a few people, with agents, with Cam, with everybody kind of in the mix, just to am I getting this right? Am I seeing this the way that I think I'm seeing it? Did I hear what you said at the end of the season the way I think I'm interpreting that at this point? And just rebound with those guys to just double check. So again, it's not none of these things. I think it should be really clear. Like when Don says the players don't make these decisions, that's exactly how that works. It's not like he's asking directly, do you think I should fire Bruce Cassidy?
But they have influence.
But they have influence. They right. When you said, when you had this conversation, or did this really happen, and was this the way it happened? And then he has to corroborate, because again, guys are going to say that in meetings. Like, listen, I thought this was my role, and I ended up here. And you don't have that really conversation with your general manager in the middle of a season. You're just trying to deal with it. You're dealing with the coach. But at the end, when the GM asks how it went, well, I thought I was going to be this. I was told I was going to be X, and I ended up being Y. And I'm confused by that. And I'm, so that is something that was bothering me this year. And that's what you would say as a player. So then everybody's got to kind of filter those things and see what's personal, what isn't, what's real, what's not, what the view is from everybody's point of view.
So it seems pretty clear, Razor, that this came down to personality conflict. Is that a fair way you think to describe it? That they they directly made references to coaching style earlier. Especially Cam talked about wanting different coaching strategies, maybe some different way of doing things, perhaps not perhaps, but keeping the young kids more confident and not, having them play in fear of not playing after a mistake. But when all's said and done, if we're reading this right, it's clearly just a very much a contrast in personality and not enough. It feels like Don Sweeney feels that there was not enough liking of the coach in the room when it was all said and done. That's how I'm taking it. Is that how you take
it? Yes, for sure. And you've covered more of these than I have, and you know this better than I have. But I can't really recall. There's two reasons why coaches get fired from my point of view. And again, you might know a few that didn't happen this way, but it's basically results. You don't win enough. That's certainly not the case in this situation. And or your players don't like you. There's not enough respect. The message is gone. The organization feels like it's not there. And so you get fired for those two things, one of those two things, and it's not results in this situation. So that's kind of where I come from it. Again, there's probably other ones that are out there, but it seems pretty evident at this point. That's what it is.
As a player, though, I mean, you're looking at a guy who has had a lot of success, and he might push you in ways that isn't always comfortable. We're not sitting in the room, so we don't have firsthand experience with how that happens. But let's just say it's not always feeling good, warm and fuzzy, etc. Are we past the results matter more than personality era? Are we past that now? Because if that's, I think we are. I think the younger players, and I don't even mean the 18-year-olds, I'm talking about just the generation of players. I do think they have more impact and input on who stays and who goes as a coach now.
I would agree with that but I would also, yes, I would agree with that in general, in the big picture. I would say that in this situation, had the results not been there, and looking at hindsight, that this probably wouldn't have gone 6 years. Right? Like this might have crept for Bruce Cassidy. He might have been able to get as much out of it as he possibly could because he was having 100-point seasons and because he was being successful. Had it gone the other way, maybe it wouldn't have been as long. And so yes, I agree. The players do have more than what I did when I had Mike Keenan or Pat Burns. Like that, they weren't getting fired because I didn't feel good about what they said about me. That's to your point. That is absolutely a thing. How you deal with these guys, how you manage these younger multimillionaires is a big part of the job. I would say results still, certainly matter, but you don't have as long of a rope if your guys don't like you and you're just winning all the time. We've seen it around the league now. Barry Trotz is another great example of this. Obviously, they had a pretty good run, and he's a pretty good coach, but it was time to move on.
Well, according to Lou, Lou's kind of the outlier, so to speak, according to Lou, he does things obviously the Lou way. I don't want to go on too much of a tangent here, but do you have any recollection of your end of season meeting with management when you had Keenan, when you had Pat Burns, and how that was handled? Did you have any meeting, in fact, at that time?
No, I didn't at that time.
We got mulch. We have mulch at the door.
The mulch is here. I think it's here. It's the ideal time. I think
do you need to take a mulch break?
Nope. He just hammered the door. I'm sure he just let me know it's there.
Gotcha.
No, I was in the minors by that point. So by the time they were gone and fired, Mr. O'Connell and Mr. Sinden didn't probably need to see me at the end of the season. So I didn't have much say in those ones.
All right. So I guess now the way to look at this is, it's plain and simple. Is this a good thing for the Bruins? Look, I thought Bruce is a heck of a coach. I don't think any coach is perfect. I think that's a pretty freaking obvious statement here. Go get your mulch. All right, go make sure. For the first time ever, folks, on Morning Brew with Jaffe and Razor, we will take a live pause as we get a new mulch delivery. I can do a little play-by-play for you. It's 6 yards of mulch that Razor is getting. He's got a whole swath of trees on one side of his yard that he needs to fill. All right, there we go. I did a little play-by-play on the mulch delivery.
Appreciate it.
Razor is now happy.
Yeah.
Albeit he is going to be now coming working, and like I said, until 9:00 at minimum tonight.
Jesus.
All right. So, but is this a good thing for the Boston Bruins? I mean, we're not even officially in summer, and you've got major surgeries in no particular order: McAvoy, Marchand, Grzelcyk, Riley, Bergeron. We'll get to Bergeron because he's not even a player for this team officially right now. You have had the tumult of your president really not give your coach a resounding vote, seal of approval a couple of weeks ago. So there's this unknown. There was rumblings that Kevin Dean wasn't coming back. It's official now that he's not coming back. You want to talk about holy uncertainty, Batman. And now you throw into you fired your coach. Yet, by the way, it was also from the press conference stated that no, he hadn't lost the room. A little bit of a mixed message there, Razor. Fair? Is that fair? I mean,
yes.
It's concerning because it feels like we're in this. Whoa, what the heck is going on right now?
Well, yes. When you say lose the room, when someone says lose the room, I think that I sometimes think when I hear that, I think that the players are at fault for some of that. And I feel like he wanted to stay away from that despite the fact the players didn't really love the way things were going all the time. Personally, professionally, they brought it on the ice and played the defensive way that the coach's staff wanted them to play. So that's the way I took that mixed messaging, per se. I think that you look at what was going on the ice. A lot of times when you say mixed messages or weren't receiving them, they weren't doing what was told of them on the ice, where I think the Bruins did that, and that's why they were successful, and that's why Bruce had this success. Is it a good thing? That's a tough one to answer. Just like all these surgeries, are these surgeries a good thing? Like they're going to get healthy? Or is it a bad thing that they're going to start slowly and maybe they're not going to be able to get to their game next season? There is a ton of uncertainty, and I guess if you want to look glass full, if you want to be optimistic that it's a good thing, is that you have to truly believe that a lot of players, more than just a couple, were having an issue with the way they were being coached, and that a new voice will pick certain players up that maybe didn't have good playoffs or maybe didn't have the numbers that they wanted. And you can only extrapolate from those types of performances that they weren't completely happy with where they were at.
I just look at this roster and I'm not sold.
No,
I'm not sold. I'm not sold. I'm not sold that a new coach, yes, he'll have a different way. And yes, you hope there will be a bump, but I'm not sold with what they have given, whether it was Bruce or a new coach, that as is, if there's no changes made, and I know there'll be changes, but how many changes? Don admitted in his media on Tuesday morning that they're basing all of this right now, Razor, on Patrice Bergeron.
Yeah, they are.
That's the most perhaps unsettling thing right there, because holy smokes, if they wait until let's say he doesn't make a decision for another month, you've had the draft, you've had the start of free agency. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What are you doing? What do you do? And I'm just not convinced with how this roster is constructed right now that this team is in a good spot. I I've always said the worst thing to do is to get caught in the malaise of mediocrity. I know they were better. I know it. And I know, I'm not saying I know what you're going to say, but I know some people say, well, they were better than 8 teams in the East, no problem. That's fine. But they were still number 6, 7, 8, and at times in the season 9. They were there. They got their shit together. They played well. We saw a good run, regular season run. But are they really built for a playoff run? No. As they are right now, no. And now the other question is, I kind of get on this tangent. If Bergeron comes back, if Krejci comes back, what is it? A 1-year thing?
Yeah.
So it's a 1-year thing, right? Is that what they're playing for right now?
Well, yeah.
I mean, is that where they're at?
And I'm personally okay with that 1-year thing. I've talked about it on this bunch of times. Like, I don't want the Ottawa, and I don't want the 5-year rebuild to come. It's a disaster. It really is. And I know no one's gone through this here in a long time.
But aren't we pushing it off? Aren't you pushing it off?
Well,
aren't we? Aren't they potentially pushing it off or no?
No, I don't think so, because you have got there. If the Pasternak thing, I'm sure we'll talk a little bit. He's 26 years old. If you sign him, you have McAvoy, Pasternak, Lindholm. You can build around those 3 guys for a long time. Those are top 10 draft picks. For the draft is so hard and difficult unless you're picking the McKinnons and the Makars top 6. Like this Colorado Avalanche thing. I was in Colorado when this started. It was a disaster. We lost every single game. There was no one in the building. No one cared. That was 13 years ago, everybody. It's not like you just come up with these guys out of nowhere and go to a cup final. So I do think there's enough of another core coming. Now, I don't think, to your point, that a coach matters in that. I don't think whoever they hire, if they fired Cassidy, is changing their trajectory now. I think this was something they needed to do. I think it was something that's going to, give some people a little bit of a cheerier attitude towards their coach. But at the end of the day, I agree with you. I think what you're saying is that it doesn't, to me, it doesn't matter who the coach is at this point with this group. They have to get the Bergeron thing sorted out, and then they have to make some moves around all of that to get better.
Well, right.
Because it's not just a coaching thing. They didn't win or lose because of Bruce Cassidy. It was just time for a little move on in that regards, is what I'm saying.
Well, but I would argue that they won more with Bruce. I think he got a ton out of this team, given what it is, or what it wasn't, maybe, when it's all said. I mean, we talked about the lack of a physical presence out there. We talked about that. They didn't have a lot of it. I mean, look. The Bruins view the team differently than I think, than a lot of people. Don Sweeney talked about it. They felt like they left some stuff on the table this year. But I don't know. I thought Bruce did a pretty damn good job. I do. I don't know if another coach would do as well. I'm playing the hypothetical game here. Another coach could. But until they settle the Bergeron thing, they're putting so much in, and I get it. But they can't. They're putting so much into this decision that they might have to reverse. If he says, no, I'm not coming back, it's like they're going to do a full screeching halt and perhaps go another direction.
Well, I think there should be some, there should be some I don't have the right word. We should feel a little bad for the situation they're in, because this is never really, what team has had a 37-year-old centerman who's the best defensive centerman on the entire planet just 2 weeks ago contemplating retirement. When guys are usually contemplating retirement, they're done, right? They're the Ryan Getzlaffs, the Dustin Browns. They're over that. In this situation, I feel like we have to have some empathy, I guess, for the situation that they're in. The general manager and Cam Neal are in. You can't cut Patrice Bergeron. You can't force him into a decision,
right?
But he's also one of the best forwards in the world. He would have played on the Canadian National Olympic team 3 months ago. So you have to have him back in your lineup. You want him back in your lineup more than anything because he's still really good, but you're at his mercy of that decision. It just doesn't happen to a lot of teams is what I'm saying. So it's really hard for you and I to sit here and like criticize it. I think it's really like when it sounds like I'm a homer, but it's really, really hard to be put in this position as a team, but they're in and usually they wouldn't deal with it. Usually you're getting rid of the guy or usually you're putting it away. But in this situation, it's such a once a generation situation that they're in, and it makes it really hard to make decisions going forward until you know what the clarity is of Patrice.
Right, and I get that.
It's crazy, right? Like, has anyone in the league had to deal with this? It hasn't happened, right?
Not that I can recall. I don't think so. I mean, maybe something contractually with the player, happened like that, where they are at the end of a season type of thing or whatever. But I get what you're saying, but it feels like they're just waiting for this one thing, and then everything else gets clear. And I'm just selfishly, I'm hoping it's not then too late.
Yeah,
and you can't just think the panacea. It's going to be fine. If Patrice comes back, as much as most people, I think 99% is a fair number to put there to say would like to have him back. But, there's always going to be that 1%. No, wouldn't. But I don't know, man. I think that management looks at this team that they've put together, and I think they look at it and they say it should accomplish more. I thought Bruce got I think he got an awful lot out of this team, Razor, an awful lot. And that doesn't mean the coaches aren't infallible. I'm not saying that. We can comb through decisions. We've talked about it before. Certain things here and there about him that we didn't always agree with, But I thought he got an awful lot. I really do. I thought he got a ton. And, fans aren't, I'm sure you've seen it on social media. Fans aren't happy at all.
Yeah.
I'd say most aren't happy. Now, you don't live your decision-making life based on social media. I think we'd all be in major trouble if we did that.
Big time.
But do you think that this could have a backlash on the team at all?
Well, it seems like,
or do you think it's just the in the now?
Well, I think social media is certainly in the now. I think that there is a lot to be said for Bruce's popularity. We're seeing that. People appreciated his honesty and the way he answered questions and how he gave insight into the team that most coaches don't. But you can't do it that way. You can't run your team based off a coach doing a good presser. And if the players are not happy with it, and then you have to do what's right for the team. So yes, listen, Don and Cam are PR wise on the hot seat, whatever that means. People want to see what they're going to do, and they feel like Bruce Cassidy is more popular. That certainly is the feel now, and it'll be interesting to see how that progresses, because certainly it feels like there's backlash now, let alone if Patrice retires, or let alone how the draft goes or whatever it is. So it does make for a little tenser times, I would assume, above Warrior Ice Arena.
I would agree. Yeah, I mean, these are the decisions that obviously management has to make. Nobody else is going to make those.
Yeah.
But they also then put themselves squarely.
Yeah, he's in the. There's nothing else now, right? Like, there's nothing. If the season doesn't go well, you can't blame another coach. That's how this works.
Exactly.
Around the league, everywhere, not just here in Boston.
Yeah. Yeah. I just wonder if there's really enough that they can do to this roster as it is.
Yeah.
With all the injuries, with all of the question marks,
and not a whole lot of money, not a whole lot of space, and right,
not a whole lot of money space, not a whole lot of you're going to have to get incredibly creative. I have some concern. I do, Razor. I look at this team and I have concern, and I'm you can get a new coach, but the coach doesn't always put the roster together, right? So you gotta work together. So I have some concern about this. How much How do you view this team? Do you think that it can be, they had a great run not the last part of it, because they stumbled a little bit right near the end, but for the most part, the last third of the season, right? Yeah. They did some really, really good stuff that catapulted them into the playoffs. But did we see just a good regular season team and not a team that's built for the playoffs when it's all said and done? And I think that's the big, not just the big question, but I think to me, that's the reality, is that they're going to have to make a significant amount of moves in my eyes to make this team a big playoff team.
Yeah, yes. It's also funny, right? I mean, I know Colorado's a wagon, but Darren Helm, Andrew Cogliani, Nicholas Abul, whatever, those guys were all guys that
Kubel,
like these guys, they're the role. These are the guys that came through the other night, and I get the McCarr, McKinnon, believes it. Don't go at me, but it's just interesting how.
But that's finishing.
Yeah, no,
that's
I know.
Finishing off your.
It is, and that's where Bruins are. That's what the Bruins are to a point. Should be finishing with the Halls, the Coyles, the Pasternak, the Marchands, the Bergerons, right? Like technically, that's what they should be doing. It feels like they need a little bit more, but I
think they need more.
Yeah,
I think they need more.
No, of course, but McKinnon's another. McCarr's bringing them to it. They don't even have a goaltender in Colorado, so it's just interesting how that's come together there. If that's the blueprint for everybody going forward.
Is there a coach? I mean, Don Sweeney said that he's going to do his due diligence. I get it. Can he afford to bring in a coach that hasn't had NHL coaching experience?
I don't see how he does. You can't go the college route. You can't go the Dave Haxtell route like that. I think we know what that looks like.
Right.
It feels like you need someone. See, this is kind of where you would probably get a little bit more input from the players. You don't get as much on the firing, but maybe on the hiring of things to get the right guy, because it's really important. It's vital. The one I haven't figured it out. There's so many spots too, right? Like who's gonna go where? Right. The musical chairs that's gonna happen. The free agency of coaches is gonna be more interesting than free agency of players here once this season ends and where guys can go. But it feels, to your original question, it feels like you need someone that's been around with this group. What do you think?
Well, I don't think you can. I just don't think that you can bring somebody in who hasn't coached in the NHL before.
Yeah, if you're doing that, it's a full.
I think
too. Like that's another.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. I mean that to me then says something whole different. Now the one guy, and I know his name's been out there, is Jay Leach. He's had head coaching experience in the American League, and now he's an assistant in the NHL, and he's had success at the AHL. But again, it depends. What are you going for? Are you looking to make that one last run at it? If you are, is this the guy that finishes? That brings you to that. Is he capable of bringing you to that level?
Yeah.
We know that he's good with the young kids. We understand that that's going to be an awful big role in it. But if you're basing it on the emphasis is on the development of the young kids, then why are you going for it?
Yeah.
I mean, you have to do both at the same time. I get it. But which is your emphasis with the new coach?
No,
you've got openings right now in Dallas, Philly, Detroit, Vegas, Winnipeg, Boston, question marks in Chicago, and Florida still.
Yeah, it's a long list.
Right.
And there's a bunch of guys off the board that, the Travis Greens, the Jeff Wards of the world that are out there and hanging out there. And there's so many names that I think it's really hard for anyone to really know what he's thinking because of the amount of options and the amount of teams that are still looking for coaches. It's really hard to dig in until some of these dominoes fall, I would assume. And is it? But what do you think? Do you think they're going to go with a Boston Bruins connection, or are they going with someone completely off the reservation?
I don't personally. Me, the connection to the Boston Bruins right now is third on the list.
Yep.
Fourth on the list.
Okay.
of what would be vital. I want the best freaking coach out there. I want a guy that is going to push the players. I want a guy that is, if you want to talk about opening it up a little bit and being a little bit more creative, maybe a little bit more, get and go. You're going to maybe sacrifice some defense, but anyways, I'm fine with that. But no, to me, the Bruins connection, I mean, Rick Tocchet has a Bruins connection, having played only a year and a half or so with the Bruins, but with Cam, with Don. So there's that. I got to imagine I heard he's got a couple of interviews lined up already. I got to imagine he wants to get back behind the bench, but coach parts of, was it 6 seasons, I think, between Tampa and Arizona. Mm-hmm. And, I mean,
it was fine.
He's a wonderful guy.
Yeah.
Awesome guy, passionate guy. He was fine. He was, as a coach, but his teams also weren't great.
Yeah.
Does he bring that type of image, attitude? He's had NHL coaching experience. I don't see them getting Barry Trotz.
No,
I don't see that as the style.
I agree. It seems like a duplicate.
There's guys. I'm just throwing names out.
No. The Tortorella. That's a fun one. Everyone likes throwing that one.
There's Tortorellas out there. I don't see that happening either. There's names like Jim Montgomery has gotten there was a lot of chatter about him last year he's back on the bench with the St. Louis Blues. And, he had more than a little incidents, and, he's working his way back and he's highly regarded.
Yeah.
Then you get guys like, you hear about AHL guys, you hear about Mark Savard.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think I can actually see Mark Savard end up being a really good coach. But do you take a shot on him immediately with never having coached in the NHL?
Yeah.
It's real different. I mean, but the other thing is, if he talks about doing his due diligence, which I get, if these jobs start filling up real soon, now you start losing out potentially on guys too.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, like that's where it's hard to really know what they're going to do, because you have to base it off of what these other 6 teams are doing. You start it's just like drafting. All right, is this guy good? I really want this guy, but do I have to get him now? Can I wait? Who do I get? Who else is interested in him? Does he want to come here? There's so much variable to each of these guys, unless you're going way off the board. But all the names we just talked about are all taking interviews with all these other teams. They are on the board, and that's who the Bruins, I think, have to go. They can't afford to go with someone off the board, because I think we've kind of just talked about that. They can't go with the random. So you have to really, you're probably going to be going up against a team like Las Vegas, who feel like they're in the very similar position as the Boston Bruins at this point, at crossroads, where they have to get the right guy to win next season again.
Yeah, there's another name, Pete DeBoer.
Mm-hmm.
Could he be? I mean, there's a Brick Bones. I love Bones. I don't see that happening.
Yeah,
right now.
I don't think it's his thing. I don't think it's what he wants. Be a good assistant here.
I mean, but I don't see that happening as much as I love the guy and respect him. I don't think I see that happening right now for this team. But there's been other names. David Quinn, I think he'll get opportunity. Can you talk about the college route? The names have come out, whether it's Nate Lehman, Donato. I don't know. I'm not sure I see that happening. That would be a huge.
That's a huge gamble. Oh, mama, that would incite backlash. So you better make that. Better know for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, and Don was asked about his position right during the morning press conference, and you could tell that there was give and take going back and forth a little bit there, and he said, well, yeah, and I'm paraphrasing, if I don't do my job in their eyes, they being the ownership, then I won't be here.
Yeah.
Then I won't be doing it. So there's no question that he is now even more so. And again, a lot of fans unhappy with him. All you got to do is read social media.
Yeah, for sure. I think it is worth noting that this would not have, like when he says it's a tough decision, he's worked with Cassidy for 14 years. This is something that he probably hasn't slept for 10 days. It's not an easy thing to do. General managers don't take this stuff lightly, and he knows exactly where he stands next. He knows this is it. He knows every general manager knows when their last big decision's being made, and I think it was noticeable that Don knew this was it, but he thinks he's got conviction on this as well.
Well,
so we'll see.
He did it. And he's going to have to now make the right. He's going to have to make the right decision here. Mm-hmm. I mean, this can't be. This is going to have to be a good. And then he's got to make the right decision about the direction of the team. And I think they got a lot of. Again, there's a lot of. I'm real curious, and I can't tell you I'm a whole. Like feeling okay. It's going to be fine. I'm not right now, Razor. Maybe it's the unknown. Maybe it's the unknown that just needs to be handled. And that's, again, it's the moment that it handled it. And there's a lot of stuff that has to happen right. And they got to get some better players. They do.
Yeah.
They have to get some better players. That's part of it. That's part of it too. All right. I don't know. Anything else we need to get to besides your mulch?
Well, I'm sure.
I was home, I would come help you.
I mean, the reality is we're going to have a couple shows here coming up, I'm assuming. We're going to have, there's 3 big ones coming in the next month. We got Patrice, we've got the draft, we got free agency. So we're going to have lots more to talk about. And then a hiring of a coach. So we got 4 things that are really important to the Bruins here in the next, got to be 5 weeks, right? So.
Yep.
Here we go.
We quit. And just to wrap, I mean, really say it in about 30 seconds, what we talked about yesterday about the injuries. And again, that show's not coming out, but you were trying to find the positives. You were saying, the fact that they're all get it done, they should be back by the end of November.
Season starting later.
Season starting again around October 15th, we're told that you're still like you're trying to find that positive in that they didn't wait too long and they can get back. It still could be scary, man. They cannot start the season and be 5-15. They can't be 10 games under 500 like the Islanders were this past year. Mm-hmm. It's just too big of a hole to dig out of. So I have some concern about that. You found that Bergeron getting his surgery done now was a little bit of a positive because it still says I have a chance to play next year if I so choose, right? That's what you thought there?
That's my optimism of the day for everyone thinking that Patrice is never coming back. That if he knew that if I was retiring and I knew I was retiring, I would not have surgery done to ruin my summer. I would wait until November, December when I knew I'd be sitting in the house with 5 feet of snow outside while my kids were in school all day to do surgery then. That's just me. So, but I'm going to think that Patrice is doing that to get ready for the season, to be 100% for his season rather than dealing with nagging elbow injuries like he had last season.
Yeah. Well, I guess let's hope. Yeah, let's hope that's right. I'm still, obviously rooting for him to come back for one more year. All right. So a lot of uncertainty, though, in the Boston Bruins world right now. I get it if fans are uncomfortable, unhappy, unsure. I get it. I get all of it. And there's a lot of work to be done. Let's see if they can accomplish it because if not, it might not be so pretty. We've had it good for a while, Razor. I know there were some seasons, 15, 16, not making the playoffs, but since then we've had it pretty good. And we got to see if the Bruins can get back there. If they can't, well, some changes will continue to be made. That's going to wrap up this morning brew with Jaffe and Razor. A special brew. Thank you, as always, to Fazenda Coffee for helping bring it to the people. FazendaCoffee.com/morning brew. Go check it out. Go order some stuff, $45 or more. Get you a limited edition morning brew mug as well for free. Razor, go mulch. I'm going to go get ready to head back to the arena, and we will talk to you again soon. And go make yourself an extra nice cup of coffee.